You're tuned into Inside Lowell. Inside Lowell podcast brought to you in part by Washington Savings Bank, serving the greater Lowell community for over 130 years. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. Reverie 73, Lowell's #1 cannabis shop. Elevate your cannabis experience at Reverie 73. Hafner's, heating and cooling homes and businesses for nearly a century. Hafner's, it kicks. And by Boston North Company, restaurant and retail solutions for your business. That's Boston North. And now, time for another Inside Lowell podcast. Inside Lowell. If Lowell is your home, this is your place.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Inside Lowell podcast, the Inside View, where today we're going to take an inside view of the upcoming 2023 City of Lowell municipal election, the first of many election podcasts and part of first of many election coverage issues that we have as well here at Inside Lowell. Going to be the dominant theme in the Mill City, and our Inside Lowell election team is going to be all over it. We're going to introduce you to a member of our election 2023 team in a quick moment here and start to delve into the early campaign season, which started slowly, but a lot of interesting developments both in front of the scenes and behind the scenes over the last week or two. So we're going to start to delve into those for you. Just want to quickly thank all of our sponsors for helping make Inside Lowell possible, all of our podcasts and our entire website. You just heard the voice over there introducing you to some of them. We'll thank them again throughout the show today. And we also thank all of our sponsors, as no matter how big or small, you folks are a big part of our early success, and we look forward to growing along with you. And with that, let's turn the camera over and bring in, there's a familiar face, although it's been a while since we've done a podcast with him, Jack Mitchell, member of the Pod Squad, which we're reuniting again soon for another podcast, but also the man behind the Lowell Live Feed Forum, where many of these discussions are actually taking place. Jack, good to have you with us here as I'll turn off all my electronics. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good. Long time no chat.
Hey, I've been summering in Haverhill.
Yeah. How is that city? Is it still on the incline?
I don't really know that much about it. I live in the woods up past the cows, and I think I'm going to try to keep it that way. So this is my new hometown. I made it my hometown in 1995. Raised our family here, and I love this city. And if anything, for a political nerd, it's my test tube.
Yeah, is Mayor Fiorentini and the candidates vying to replace him now? Are they happy that you're sticking with Lowell politics and not getting involved in Haverhill?
I've had like one friend here in Lowell that has some sort of relationships in Haverhill, sort of nudge me that way. I don't know if they're really trying to. It can't be that they're trying to bring my political prowess to Haverhill as much as they're trying to get it out of Lowell, maybe.
Yeah, you have continued to be a lightning rod, which is great. It allows me to try to pretend I'm more professional, at least on today's podcast with the Pod Squad. Who knows? But let's take a look at this race if we can. First of all, there was some recent developments. Just a couple of hours ago, we reported at Inside Lowell that another familiar name, has pulled papers to run for Lowell City Council as an at-large candidate. And that candidate is none other than former city councilor and really political trailblazer for the Southeast Asian community across all of America, Riddy Young.
Yes.
Pulled his papers today. A little bit of a surprise move in that I hadn't heard any scuttlebutt about it. Had you?
No, I had not.
So what gives? Why is somebody who served on the council, won election in 1999, served from 2000 to 2005, he stepped down a couple of months before the election. Why is he getting back in 18 years later?
I mean, I would think, right? I haven't had conversations about this, so I would think that politics and bringing a community into sort of the public square and having an effect over time, it's a process. It's, the Cambodian community came in, they, settled into the city of Lowell. They acclimated to a lifestyle that was very different from their life in Southeast Asia. And they started to learn their way, the way that maybe we do. And they studied and they tested a little here, they tested a little there. Riddy tested and, passed, right? He passed in the short term, but I guess, maybe the bubble pushed back a little bit and figured out how to outfox him. And then he sort of pulled back but Riddy has never gone away. He's always been sort of behind the scenes, I think, nurturing, right? Very grassroots oriented, making strong moves with some, I'd say like the Nikki Songas campaign, right? There was a lot of effort and farm team, to use more of a baseball analogy, right? There was a building, and then push a little bit here, push a little bit there, test, win, lose. It's been an escalation, and now there seems to be, after the change with the new charter and the districts and less at large, that and sort of the lawsuit that the Southeast Asians put together along with the Latino community, right? They are, I think maybe they're feeling their oats, as we say, right? They've learned their lesson, and then maybe they want to make a move, and Riddy is at the lead.
Well, he's an interesting name because, as you mentioned, while he stepped off the council in 2005, he didn't go away. He was very active, and a lot of the newly elected Southeast Asian candidates you can directly tie to him. He ran for state rep. He's part of the divide there that is not on the state rep Ratty Mom side. There's clearly a divide there, and kind of Ratty Mom is the lightning rod in all of it, because we've seen Riddy Young challenge him in 2018 unsuccessfully. Then, who some people consider a protege of Riddy, Tara Hong, come within a whisker of knocking him off in the primary in 2022. But this is the first time I've heard Riddy's name in a council vein since he left the council. He was kind of front and center when the decision was made to elect Sokari Chow, the mayor of Lowell, making him the first Cambodian mayor in the city's history over Vesna Noon, who many thought would get that honor. Riddy clearly in the Vesna Noon camp. He was the, dare I say, the MC of that infamous rally at Lowell City Hall, where Susie Chun, another candidate for city council now, stepping away from the school committee to run for city council, she was part of that as well. Is his decision to get back into the council side of politics as opposed to state rep and or the mentoring component, can we directly tie that into the mayoral vote of 2021? And is this a way to say, hey, this time we're not leaving anything to chance. We're putting as many candidates as we can in there that we know are votes for Vesna Noon?
I mean, I don't know.
That was a very long question.
No, I know. I understand. I'm going to break it apart a little bit, right? So I think that there are... there's this idea of momentum, right? And the momentum is about mass. So the energy that kind of comes behind the push of the Southeast Asian community, I think things like all right, so if we get into super oversimplifications of what goes on inside the Lowell Cambodian community, right, which has a large effect what's going on in Cambodia, right? Maybe, and I wasn't alive at the time, but I think around the turn of the century, some of the stuff that happened with the Irish in Boston and the Irish in Lowell was also sort of a reflection of a relationship between the Yankees of sort of British descent, Protestant, right? And then the Irish Catholic, right? So I'm going to very loosely draw a parallel between these two worlds, because I think the Cambodians have studied American politics, and in Lowell, the Irish lessons are very, very prominent, all right? And it's not hard to pick up that trail. I think things like Sakari's election and selection as the first mayor, a Cambodian American mayor, I think that instigated or lent weight to what we're seeing now. I don't think it was the only thing that did it. I think there was a period of cultivation, and they've got some candidates now that are ready and sort of ready to bloom. So a variety of things all coming together, but they must. I think Riddy's inclusion could potentially be a sign that they don't feel like they can really pull it off, and so they need Riddy to kind of galvanize everything, and because Riddy is certainly a bannerman for the Cambodian community.
He becomes an instant credible threat in that race. I think most people look at it. And by the way, I want to talk about show prep. If you look at it, Jack has actually put every single district, both on the school committee and on the city council and our board here. He did show prep, which I would never delve into because that's just too much work. But the interesting council name before Riddy's announcement today was Virak Wee, another political newcomer, but somebody very well known in Lowell's Southeast Asian Cambodian circles. And I found it interesting that you said that perhaps Riddy's in there because there's not enough faith that in Virak Wee to be able to get one of those 3 at-large seats. Because if you look at the race, it's, the 2 top vote getters for what seems like an eternity now are either Rita Mercier and more recently Vesna Noon. They're 1-2, 2-1 over the last close to 15, 20 years.
Except for after the Collie.
Right, the Collie thing you put aside.
Yeah.
Even then, Rita Mercier was able to survive that avalanche and finish 5th. But
yep.
I've almost ceded those top 2 spots to one of them in whichever order it's going to be. So you also have an incumbent in a district, Eric Gitchia, running at large this time. You have a former city councilor when the system was all at large, Corey Belanger, running now. And Virak Wee was the 5th candidate in that. Is Riddy's decision today to pull papers, is that a sign that perhaps they gauged the waters and didn't think Virak Wee was quick enough? Or do you think this is actually people saying, we can take Rita too?
I mean, I'm going to try to leave the Rita part of the formula out for now. I mean, there's definitely, when we, if we go back through sort of the activism, the progressive activism in the city, Rita's a target, right? But I don't know how much that formulates. I think maybe allies to the Cambodian community might see that as a possible collateral benefit to fronting and supporting a variety of Cambodian candidates, is the potential elimination of Rita. But I don't really see the Cambodians themselves, because Rita, one of the things, I know the DEI crowd likes to crap on Rita, but they don't get it. I can't explain it to them. I've tried, but she has a lot of grassroots support across a variety of communities, ethnic communities, right? So I don't really think, even Riddy, unless they went negative, which I don't think they would do, because I think that would be foolish. I don't think that's Rita is specifically being targeted by this thrust.
Well, if I may interject here, sure. You go back to that infamous rally at City Hall, and the theme was every single one of you that voted for Sokari Chow, of which Rita Mercier was one, we're coming to get you. And you see it with Susie Chun challenging Kim Scott instead of seeking re-election to her school committee seat. And I think we kind of see it with Riddy, who, as I said, was kind of the MC for that event. It seems like they're going to try to go after everybody, which begs the question, is there potential that it backfires? Is the rest of the city, would they look at this little divide within the Asian community themselves and say, you know what, let's stay over there. Let's focus on Lowell. And because as I look back at Riddy's, the story of Riddy getting elected and whatnot, he had some very interesting supporters back in the day, a name that you you say every time you're cursing John Cox, the then city manager, but Riddy was kind of seen as a protege of John Cox, and some
Vesna too.
And Rita Mercier was quoted in a Lowell Sun article saying something very complimentary about Riddy and how important his ascension at the time was to the city and whatnot. So I wonder if there'll be a little bit of pushback if that crew thinks that they're the target, as it was stated they would be back in December of 2021.
Right. Just a couple of things I want to put, I don't think what happened, I wouldn't call what happened on City Hall steps infamous. Would I call it strategically wise? I probably wouldn't call it that. I think that the proof is going to be in the upcoming pudding, right? But you certainly heard Riddy, you certainly heard Susie very passionately describe a case, right? And I missed it, although I attended the Vesna event earlier in this week. It was Thursday, right? And because I respect and personally like Vesna, right? But I've been told he sort of carried some of that torch into the warp and weft on that day. And it was this mixed reception to that. Okay. At the warp and weft, Vesna's sign no longer occupies a place in the window.
Yes, campaign sign gate, which exploded over.
That's a different thing. I think just the discretion and the support based on what he heard in the room. The owner of the warp has now made certain decisions. The other thing, again, is Varrock in terms of Varrock. But I think that talks about the pushback, right? Like if we take what happened at the warp might be a microcosm of the potential pushback, okay? But this thing with Varrock, is Riddy jumping in because he doesn't think Varrock can carry it and there's an act of desperation. I don't know. I don't know if they feel like they're complementary towards each other, or if there's an antagonism, right? Like the Varrock guy is hard to peg. He's hard to peg because no one knows who the hell he is except the Cambodians. He's living down in Boston someplace, Dorchester, running for state rep. I don't know what that race looked like, but when I looked at his CPF, he raised not a lot of money. Anybody can go and check that out himself. So he wasn't a very good fundraiser, which at state rep level, especially the closer you get to Boston, you have to be prepared to raise money. So it's hard to say whether Riddy's sort of choice is made to facilitate Varrock or to stub Varrock. I don't know the answer to that.
So let's talk about Varrock because he is a newcomer. But as you mentioned, he ran for state rep 2018 in Hyde Park. He has been active in Lowell, part of the CMAA board, Cambodian Mutual Assistance Association. I believe he's their president still. He also works at Middlesex Community College as a Southeast Asian student liaison with Southeast Asian and American student liaison there. I've had him. He sat in that chair right there. We did a podcast. He seems like a polished political candidate. How it will fly this November, I don't know. But it seems like he's somebody that the voters will take a listen to, at the very least. Especially if you're of Southeast Asian descent in the city.
So there's a tactic in politics. It's not a Southeast Asian one. It's been around for a long time. The Southeast Asians that I know of have been using it to their advantage, right? Which is there's no illegality to it whatsoever, is to give a photocopy of a ballot to voters and you fill out your slate. And the voters go and mimic what they see on the photocopy on the ballot, right? As far as I know, and I'm not an attorney, there's no violation of anything there because they're not advertising it to affect anybody around them in the polling location. So as far as I know, it's perfectly legit. But the question is, who's on that slate? And will Varrock be on that slate? We know Sakari will not be on that slate. But I don't know if Varrock will be. I don't even know if Dom Lay will be. I'd say, Susie's going to be on there. I think we might see some crossing over with Bobby Tubielli if he gets off his, whatever he's riding. And then Stacy, right? Like Stacy Thompson on the school committee. And the school side, Susie. I think Ty Chumwood might be on that slate. But I don't know, like to run against John Dakota. But we can get into that one.
Yeah, so we're going to break down all of the races, but just to kind of finish up on Virak Wehirs, there had been some question early on, and I know I had those questions about where does he fall in that Southeast Asian divide, because if you go back to 2014, he was part of Ratty Mom's campaign team, either the treasurer or might have been chairman of his campaign when he won that seat in 2014 to fill the seat that Kevin Murphy gave up to become city manager. I asked him a little bit about that race when he sat in that chair, and he talked about it as kind of a proud moment for him and for all of the Southeast Asian community. He talked about it being a celebratory time. That said, I have been told by a pretty good source that's a rift. That's that he and Ratty Mom no longer see eye to eye politically. They're no longer close politically, which leads me to believe he is part of the other side now, which Vesna Nu and Riddy Young are kind of the standard bearers of that. What are you hearing?
So it's not so much what I'm hearing as what I'm seeing, right? Let's say, so if I'm, again, to draw a parallel between sort of the Irish machine politicians and the Cambodians, right? The Irish are the bubble or, the insiders of Lowell, right? They're always looking to be able to sort of structure some sort of deal. The way they do that is by having friends across divides, right? So they always have these bridges. They always have liaison to the other side. Any particular clan leader against any particular, those two will never come to meet, but the ancillary folks, they can have those conversations, right? So I would think, because I see, it seems to me that the Cambodians have taken lessons from the Irish or the machine politicians of Martin and era Lowell, right? There are these individuals. So although I've heard that there was a fracture between Roddy and Virak, I also saw Sam Mears running around Virak at the Paul Ratayem party, right? And that, I don't see Sam Mears being anywhere ever near Vesna or anywhere near
Sam Mears, the third candidate in the state rep race in 2018 when Riddy Young challenged Ratty Mom.
And
using a Highlands address. And some would say he actually was the spoiler in that race, as some say Dominic Lay was.
He ran against Nikki too.
Right.
There's a guy that he kind of flips around and changes his stripes depending upon what he needs to do. He tends to light his hair on fire like he's a blogger, but he tries to actually get elected.
Is this you not being a fan of his? Is that what you're trying to tell him?
No, I've sat and talked with the man one-on-one. He's fine, right? Like there's no issue. But, look, people can say what they like about how I portray myself in the public square. And I've been told many times that I'm a different person one-on-one, right? But it doesn't matter what I do at the rail at the Athenian corner, right? That's when you're talking to John Mitchell, you get John Mitchell. When you're talking to Jack Mitchell, that's the influencer, right? And so Sam, whatever he's doing out there, that's what I know him for. All right. I'm sure he loves his family like any other human, right? But I wouldn't put much stock in I connect him to Virak, and I don't connect him to Vesna and Riddy or Susie.
We shall find out soon enough. You're watching the Inside View. Jack Mitchell, part of InsideLowell's Election 2023 team, is here. We're kind of taking an early look at the campaign, which is starting to take shape, and it's becoming an interesting looking shape. We're going to continue our discussions and delve into some of the district races and the school committee side. Let me just quickly thank our sponsors for helping make this podcast and all of our podcasts possible. Of course, our friends at Washington Savings Bank. Now is the time to make the switch to Washington Savings Bank. And if you do, open a new account, get $1,000 directly deposited in there within the first 30 days. That could be a paycheck, could be a Social Security check, could be any qualified direct deposit. They're going to give you $300. It's a special offer for Lowell and Dracut residents. They have branches in Lowell and Dracut. Learn more online at washingtonsavings.com. Also want to thank our friends at Reverie 73, voted Lowell's top marijuana shop, cannabis shop by Boston.com, rated number 4 in the entire state. And that's pretty cool because they're a standalone, unique shop. All the others have multiple locations. Reverie 73 has one, and it's right here in Lowell, 1148 Bridge Street in Lowell. Check it out, or check them out online at reverie73.com. Thank you to our friends at Hafner's. They're known forever as a home heating company, but they're also your home's summer company as well, meeting your summer needs with propane to fuel your outdoor little warmers, your grill for the cookout, your swimming pool, so your water's not ice cold as it can get on those cold nights here in the New England summer. Check them out, Hafners.com. Hafners, it kicks. Thank you as well to our friends at Boston North Credit Card Company, retail and restaurant solutions for any type of business. They do credit card processing, paper supplies, and they've just debuted a brand new phone system that will make your life as a business owner much easier. Check them out online, bostonnorthcompany.com, locally owned and locally operated. We turn our attention back with Jack Mitchell. And Jack, I'm going to put up on the board here because I want everybody to see all your hard work prep. Let's start with the first 3 races. Ironically,
I don't know. I think we should stay at large.
Oh, yeah. We did.
We've kind of skipped over with the focus on the Cambodian community.
Yes.
We've got a couple of the old school townies at each other's throats.
Corey Belanger, former city councilor, against Eric Gitcher, current city councilor, but in District 8. He's decided to run at large. Many people look at those two as kind of, butting heads here for that 3rd slot up until we saw the recent news of Ridyung and to some extent Virak Wee.
Yes.
So what are we to make of a former councilor and a current councilor also throwing their hats in the ring here?
I think, one, they would deny that there's any sort of contention between the two of them, right? Like that came out early that, Eric is adamant as well as Corey that they're not running against each other. I think that race lines up more about the relationship of the council to the city manager. Eric is well known to be very vibrant in his the way he approaches this idea of checks and balances between the council and the manager. Some people think it's a bit too contentious. Some people think it's not contentious enough. But Eric has definitely sat himself in sort of on the other side. If I say the words fiscal watchdog, I'll throw up in my mouth.
Well, that's not a bad analogy because he kind of appears to be positioning himself or has actually positioned himself as Rodney Elliott before him, kind of a lone wolf at times. Yes, you are. So stop making the faces, right? But even before that, DeCow Sr. was often the one vote against the 8 in support of Joe Tully and other city managers there. That's a difficult way to live politically. But if you look at those 2 examples there, Howe had longevity. He certainly outlasted Tully and many others. And Rodney Elliott did survive for a very long time on the council. He was the other one who survived that Colley avalanche. So, worth a shot for a guy like Gitcher?
Definitely. And I think it's worth a shot for a guy like Corey. I mean, in terms of
Corey Belanger?
Okay. Yes. In terms of Eric's sort of branding, I mean, when I listen to some of his rhetoric, I mean, he's this shy of talking about old ladies eating cat food because of the taxes that they have to pay. And you know, my own sort of observation there is no one was too concerned when taxes were kept artificially suppressed for decades and decades and decades, right? But now it's the cans that have been kicked down the road are catching up, and there's a cost associated to that. And ARPA is only going to take Lowell so far. But when he gets into that sort of rhetoric, I see more Bud Caulfield, right? So like there's an element.
Another guy who succeeded long term, though.
That's right. Because if you're talking high propensity voters, they're trained to listen and hear certain keywords. And Eric is very astute. You will hear similar things, I think, from Corey Belanger, but you'll hear it in a way, I think, that's complimentary towards the city administration and supportive of the city administration. Whereas I think the same sort of building blocks of rhetoric will be used by Eric Gitzier, but to challenge the city administration and to challenge the city manager.
Well, let's be serious. Every election in some way, shape, or form is about the city manager, right? Every council election, and whether that's it's time for this one to leave and to bring a new one in, or it's, you know, we're going to start to see the dividing lines come into focus a little bit more clearly. You can always look at, you know, we saw it with Bernie Lynch forever, to some degree with Kevin Murphy, especially when the high school thing came about. And then with Eileen Donahue, you could kind of see things start to crystallize against her, and the cards fall in favor of Tom Golden to be the next manager. Is it smart to run or to run in a way that you would be seen as anti Tom Golden? Right now, he's a year and 2 months into his term. Is it a good strategy to be seen as, you know, the person who's going to take the manager on, this administration on?
It could very well be. I think one thing that shouldn't be forgotten is the change in our system, right? So when others had done it, they were still could sort of melt into the cloud of nine, all right? So, but in the new system, you're kind of, you know, your ass is kind of hanging out there if you go too far. I don't think anybody at this point is really looking hard at trying to rid the city of Tom Golden, right?
No, just to make his life a little bit more difficult for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I think in part it's trying to and if you listen to the manager's statement for the budget, he seems to get, when you listen to his language, that there's a change, and that the city, the voters, have said that they want this change. And so it's just a question of whether or not he can get the machinery of City Hall to be responsive. He might understand it, but does he know how to sort of pull the levers inside the City Hall machinery to get the outcomes that the city councilors and this new system are sort of asking for?
Well, that's kind of like, I ran into Councilor Gitzier downtown over the weekend. And, you know, one of the discussions we were having was kind of about that. And, you know, it's one thing to see the iceberg straight ahead, right ahead. It's another thing to turn the ship around in time to avoid the iceberg. And look, Lowell's city government has become a really big ship. It's a $500 million budget. Now, that's a lot of people in that budget, because most of your budget is people, employees.
Yep.
Call it services, call it whatever you want. You still need people to pull off the services. So that's an awful lot of people in there. It's tough to turn that around, steer it in a different direction in a year and a half, 2 years. That's why I'm willing to give it a little time to see how some of these changes, if we start to see the results. Is it fair to judge the manager this quickly, however?
I think it is. I mean, Tom has a lot of juice in this city, certainly. And he's empowered. If he has the will of the council behind him, if he has the gumption, he can make the changes that I think he sees fit. You know, obviously his role as a manager is to filter out some of maybe the worst passions of a city council that's populist, but if he takes the direction which his budget statement at the budget time seems that he does, it's just a question of whether or not he can. I'm going back to what I said before. What can he get the city hall and the administration and all the workers to go that way?
Well, to me, it's ballsy to ask for 9% increase in taxes over 2 years, given what Lowell has been. I mean, there was, Bernie Lynch couldn't get anywhere near that, and Kevin Murphy, Eileen Donahue. I don't know how much stomach they had for it, but here's a guy who's raised taxes 9% in 2 years, and he went from a 7-4 vote the first time to basically, I think it was 11-0, but let's call it 10-1, because I think Eric Gitcher would have voted against it if he thought he had some more support. But that seems like a movement a little bit in the manager's favor, at least over the last year, and the budget.
I think the manager and the tax increases are, these things needed to happen. And so, we've put off a lot of investment. And the city council has always been, I think when it was all at large, they were more tentative about taking on the high propensity voters in the power neighborhoods. So I think this new system gives us some latitude, because the neighborhoods are early in this process before the first election. I was talking until I was blue in the face. Taxes are going up. Taxes are going up. There's just no way you can provide the level of services to provide an increase in quality of life across these 8 districts. And so taxes have to go up. And I was told, not necessarily. There's efficiencies that can be made in mid-level management. We can get some blood out of this particular stone before we get to that point. And I think really the manager might have put the cart before the horse in raising taxes before he wrenched mid-level management. You've seen the motions. The councilors want efficiencies. They want some wrenching done inside City Hall. The manager.
Can they get it? You've watched government for a long time.
You're skeptical.
Well, because I think you can do some nipping and tucking, but to do the kind of cuts, even Councilor Gitcher, I haven't heard him propose the type of cuts where you're going to start affecting voters, whether it's in services or voters who are one of those people who's going to lose their job, or if you're the father, the brother, the sister, the aunt, or the uncle of the person who's going to lose that job, because you can't cut government unless you're going to cut people.
That's not necessarily true. You can, because to get certain work done, like you wouldn't play a football game with just the offensive line, right? Like there has to be a balance of skill and the right amount of people to do the work. All right. But I think what's happening is, let me take you back to the budget. One of the things that got overlooked, it kind of came in towards the end, but the manager has now been liberated from taking any of the ordinance employees and taking them to the council to change their step or whatever, right? Their pay increases. He can now move pay around and move folks around. And I think that was a 7-4 or a 6-5 vote, right? If the manager opts to demand excellence and reward those that provide excellence, then we're going to get better operations. If the manager chooses to reward the people that he knows, the people that have been loyal, not necessarily to him, but have done the job, right? Because the city government is a corporation. And so to sort of give a gold watch or a golden parachute to the CEO, because the ordinances are the upper management, right? If he chooses to put the money in front of the ask, the carrot before the stick, that's where I think he might run into problems with the city council later. But right now, I think they're giving him the opportunity to make these types of hard decisions.
So where does the manager stand as you look at the kind of breakdown on the board up there of the district races, and we've talked about the at-large. District 1, 2, 3. Dan Rourke, Corey Robinson, John Leahy, in that order. 3, by the way, so Kari Chow mayoral votes. 3 very strong Tom Golden supporters, right?
Oh, I mean, Dan is ride or die.
You may not have 3 stronger supporters, right?
I mean, I think Corey is definitely. I mean, he's very. So just Dan is ride or die, right? That guy bleeds Tom Golden. Corey, very strong Tom Golden, but not. There's a limit to that. All right, but no one asks more from the manager for outcomes than Corey Robinson. And watch the motions.
And nobody has gotten more from the manager, some would say, than Corey Robinson. But if you look at the districts, the new districts and those that have kind of been forgotten over the course of Lowell's political history, I think Centerville has made out better than anybody under Corey Robinson's advocacy and the fact that it's Tom Golden's home base.
So Corey Robinson is a surprise to so many. They imagined him as the union president, right? He's kind of, he's gruff. He talks a certain way, right? I don't think they understood the power of the man's mind in the package that they see, right? And he was super underestimated. I mean, I thought when I was talking to him, I have to keep up with the guy. The guy is super, like, he's just amazing, and not to gush too much, right? I don't want to stan, which is a slang word, right? Corey too much, but I think the proof is in the pudding. You can look at the motions. As far as the outcomes, there is the fact, like, he knows how government works, as Gitzier does, right? So he might know where to thrust to catch meat, right, and bone, instead of sort of the superficial stuff. So he might just have that insight. But I mean, one of the benefits of living in the manager's neighborhood, that's also a possibility too. In terms of John Leahy, I mean, John Leahy is, he dabbled whether he got back into the race or not, right? So John Leahy's like a lifelong political family. Like, there's a lot of legacy associated to John. He's a firm believer in the establishment and the status quo. He serves the few, and less so the many. But he does it well enough, and he does it with grace and sort of style, because everybody likes John. Right. He
lives in the most political district, and he's unopposed.
And he's got grace.
Unopposed.
The guy, no one can make you smile over a Michelob Ultra better than John Leahy. The guy I get in that guy's face, and he rolls with it. He's got a knack, all right? And if he can do it with me, he can do it with anybody.
He doesn't hold grudges. So those 3 are unopposed. Will anybody get in and challenge them? On the off chance that something happens, one of them leaves, one of them becomes, I don't know, a state rep, or one of them gets a job that's too good to pass up. There's the succession plan is whoever the runner-up is becomes your next person. We saw that with Susie Chun on the school committee replacing Andy Dakota. These 3 guys, again, bringing it over to the board, they're unopposed.
Well, Leahy lives in the most candidate-rich environment, right? So if you think of Belvedere as like shark's teeth, there's a lot of teeth that could potentially come forward, and we'll spare the I don't want to speculate on who those people would be, but everybody knows Belvedere is up to its eyeballs in power, right? No, the Highlands is kind of coming around.
Well, so here's where I'm going with that. So people could be looking at it and saying, yeah, Leahy smoked some Aris and Conway, it wasn't even close. Why am I going to do this? There's a part of me that wonders if people in Belvedere that could be legitimate challengers to Leahy and have been rumored in the past to have political aspirations are saying, okay, so I beat him, and now what? I'm getting bullied by the Centerville, by the Pawtucketville, by the Acre counselors, and it's just not worth it. Has this system made it to the point where the Belvedere representative it's almost like, I don't want to say a lost cause, but they're kind of bullied a little bit to some degree, because it's the assumption is, well, you've gotten everything you've wanted for the last 20 years. It's our turn now. I can't help but wonder if that's why we're seeing a lack of challenges to John Leahy, at least.
I mean, that's interesting in that you're saying that they feel a little beaten down because there was a strong, screw Belvedere sentiment, right? Which I thought was unfair. I mean, when I tried to be critical, but I talked about high propensity voters. I mean, people they work for the representation, right? It's just a system that allowed a certain outcome. But would the farm team sort of shrink and say, I could wait it out and maybe give a couple of, but someone's going to have to fill that gap. John, and he almost didn't run this time, right? So there's got to be somebody. And look, there's somebody that's got to that will look at sort of what's the word? Fertilizing their retirement. Or a lawyer that needs the benefits. You know what I mean? Like, there's always some reason to be a counselor other than to serve your community. And if someone like that is going to come out, that's where they'll come out of. They'll come out of the Belvedere. But the Belvedere has changed too. Like, I remember talking to Dick Howard Jr. a decade ago and saying Belvedere is going to shift as it ages out. And there are people coming out of. Do you remember that guy's name that came out of Somerville?
Harry Cordiger.
Harry, yeah. There's some expatriates that are coming in, right? Or blow-ins like myself. So the Belvedere could shift. And if the townie politics holds tight, that could mean some of the power could shift over to the Highlands.
It's a lot more liberal Belvedere than it was. Looking at the other races there, District 4, Amada Gregory has pulled papers. She's a local activist, well known in those circles, but not very well known politically. She's pulled papers to challenge Wayne Jeunesse. I'd heard rumblings that, they were more serious candidates looking to challenge Wayne Jeunesse. Doesn't look like any of them have materialized. Does he have anything to worry about in that kind of downtown hybrid district?
I don't think so. I mean, Wayne and Amada I think their base of support would have similar sentiments. Amada was very grassroots and active during the charter change effort. I saw her at most of remember how like Lowell Votes was doing little public outreach things in a variety of neighborhoods, and Amada would almost always be there. She's a grassroots person. I think she's probably a sweetheart of a person. But when I saw her at whose event was it at I think it was Paul Ratayem's. I didn't see her in the room. I saw her in the room, but I saw her keeping to herself with her clique of people. Mm-hmm. I wasn't there the whole time, so maybe she worked the room, but I didn't see her engaging in the way that I think someone that's running for office would be. So she might be half baked, so to speak, not in like she's a flunky sort of way, but she's not ready for prime time. She's got a lot of her fundamentals down, but if she can't speak to a room, if she can't approach strangers, if she's not comfortable being uncomfortable, that's not going to work out for her. Whereas Wayne isn't particularly great at those things either, but he's got a much bigger political machinery behind him. That downtown sort of al fresco mafia, they're right there.
All right, District 5, to me, that's the race to watch. Kim Scott, Susie Chun. You have an incumbent counselor, Kim Scott. You have an incumbent school committee member who decided to forego that seat and challenge Kim Scott. Does Susie have a chance of pulling off a win here?
I think it was doubtful until Riddy stepped up. Because if the Southeast Asian community really fires on every cylinder, that's going to help Susie. No one works harder than Kim. I dare. And I'll say Kim.
She's already out knocking doors.
Kim will knock doors personally. She's not going to have volunteers. I mean, does she have volunteers knocking doors? Okay, yeah, I'm not going to say absolutely not, right? But for every 10 doors that's knocked by Kim, 8 of them to 9 of them are knocked by Kim herself. And in a district race, a voter has every expectation to see the principal's face themselves. And if there's 3 houses that vote, one of them, they're going to be talking to their neighbors. Kim stopped by. All right. If Susie doesn't do that, if Susie sends an army of impassioned volunteers, it's not going to have the same effect. And if you look at what they've been doing while they've had incumbency, Kim works. Kim does her homework. She's very well informed. You can tell from her questions when she's on the floor that she knows what's going on. Nothing is surprising her. All right. She's got a variety of motions that are effective. There's been some questions about the amount of motions that Susie's put in or maybe hasn't put in. The other thing about Susie is, what is she known for? Like, I don't know her for her time on the school committee. Now, I don't study the school committee the way I used to, right? But she's more known for being an impassioned activist for Cambodian politics. Susie, when she gets to her gin up, she can light the microphone on fire. She's very good at what she does, right? But she's not talking about Lowell's children. And she's talking about whether Hun Sen is a son of a bitch, which we all know, most of us anyways, he is. But that's what she's known for.
So which brings me back to what we talked about very early in this podcast, and that is, again, is she running simply because she's a mayoral vote for Vesna Noon? And is that enough? Does that bring out enough votes to get her? I mean, she just launched her campaign. In fairness to her, she just officially launched her campaign yesterday, though everybody's known for a month or two that she's running for city council instead of school committee. But what are her issues going to be?
I don't.
That at some point, I'd like to hear from issues. No disrespect to the Southeast Asian population, because I get it. Because I watched my father ran home yesterday. By the way, we're recording this on a Monday. Yesterday, Sunday, June 25th, was election day in Greece. My father hasn't been in Greece for 62 years. He ran home to watch those election results. He still cares. He was born there. It's his home. I get the passion. But if I'm a voter in Lowell, and I was for a long time, I'm like, I don't really care which side of the divide Sokari, Vesna, Ratty, Tara, whoever are on, Susie, whoever. What are you going to do for Lowell? This city's got a lot of challenges. Please tell me what you're going to do for Lowell. And you're right, she hasn't eloquated that yet. Now, maybe she will. Maybe there's times. I'm sure she's got some people behind her who've helped do campaigns before. They'll put out some positions for her, and she'll be very passionate and fiery in advocating for them.
I think she's capable. I don't want to suggest that she herself doesn't have a core. But it's not expressed herself, and politics is a lot about muscle memory. When you're off your talking points, you have to be able to come from the cuff, and if your cuff if you don't have the muscle memory to talk off the cuff, then people can smell that on you. When I talked to Susie recently, and I said to her, you should be sincere. We didn't speak long, but I think that's at the core. All right. You can love or hate Corey Robinson, but you know what? He's a sincere guy. Yes. That's you get what you see when you talk to Corey Robinson.
And it's always about Lowell. It's always about his district.
Yes.
That's my question on Susie too. And I'm not saying she can't or she doesn't have it in her, but I haven't heard it yet. And she's been serving on the school committee for a while.
There is this, look, your father did he donate to a candidate that's running? He went and watched the results, right? But he's not actively engaged in outcomes over in Greece, is he?
He was still upset this morning over the fact that his candidate lost.
But he didn't send a check for $100. No. He didn't have a fundraising party for anybody or anything like that, right? So there's a lot of activism in the Cambodian community to affect Cambodian national politics. And there are some that speculate that there is a certain amount of we love our city. Certainly anybody that tries to portray our Cambodian candidates, our Cambodian neighbors, as people that don't love and respect this city, they are liars. The Cambodians love this city. They respect the city. They understand how they showed up with nothing and they were provided opportunity, and they very much respect that, right? But they are gripped by what's still going on. And to get office is to give one a soapbox to speak. When you talk about the democracy of America and how people can be elected, they can't be elected in Cambodia. That's very powerful. So I think there is maybe a 70-30, 60-40 split in terms of the hearts of these folks. But don't think there's some sort of agent, right? Like these are folks that love Lowell with all their hearts.
Don't doubt that at all. Let's take a look. Let's move along. We've done 55 minutes already.
You know how we are.
We do blab. District 6, Sokari Chow, Justin Ford, rematch of 2021. Is this a race we're even going to be concerned about on election night?
So if I don't think it'd be hard. Like if there is a Vesna, Riddy, Susie sort of charge, Justin will try to ride those coattails. But I don't know, like, who are they going to go at Sakari and Roddy? Like, is there going to be a negative, or is there just going to be a promotion of their tribe, right? Sakari, did some sort of self-inflicted wound, like right before he went to Cambodia. He put those motions on, and there was a response, right? But I just don't think Justin is seasoned enough to really capitalize on the outcomes that the momentum of the slate could bring.
But also, Sokari is very popular. And there are even some folks in the other slate that probably support him through elections based on some of his positions in the city. He's been a pretty good mayor. Again, his major missteps have seemed to have been over Cambodian politics, more so than Lowell politics. I guess you could give him some grief for voting present on a couple of school committee issues and maybe not being forceful enough. But overall, he's been a very visible mayor. He's been everywhere. And he seems to have done the office justice. And usually the mayor, unless involved in a direct controversy with the teachers union or somebody else, usually the mayor does pretty well in the next election. They receive a bounce simply from all the publicity they get being mayor.
Right.
So I would imagine there's some source of pride in that, even for those who may necessarily not fall on the Sokari side of the Cambodian divide.
Yeah, Sakari is not a person that rubs you the wrong way. He's pretty good, and I think he's.
It's hard not to like him, I think, is what you're trying to say. Right?
He's super likable, and he doesn't drag you in. He's careful not to drag you into any of those hardline choices like that, right? He doesn't spit that stuff. He spits apple pie and baseball, right? Like when you listen to his public statements, when he got jammed up in the council chamber, his pivot was basically, I don't pay attention to that stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm so focused on, the benefits, right, that being here in America have brought me. And so, and as far as I know, there's been no connection to him to Hun Sen when he was over there. He kept it.
He did a pretty good job doing photo ops, sending information back and stories with the Lowell representatives who were there as athletes competing in it, and made it a kind of a source of Cambodian pride that they participated and had an actual Lowellian, someone with Lowell roots, participating in the competition there.
Sakari's got an excellent comms team.
He really does.
I don't know who it is, but I think Golden is missing the bus, and he might want to talk to Sakari's people, because Sakari's got a great comms team.
All right. District 7, Paul Ratayem, incumbent from Kembing. Well-known, toyed with the idea of running in 2021, ultimately didn't. There may be a rift there with the Paul Ratayem and the Vesna Noon crew, which Vesna Noon was credited to a large degree for helping Paul Ratayem beat Dave Willett.
Yep.
Back when everyone thought that was kind of Dave Willett's seat to have in 2021. Paul, again, another guy he hasn't really been embroiled in any controversy other than, perhaps getting, caught up in that divide. Is he vulnerable at all? I know you like Fru Kembang as a person, and I like him too from meeting him.
I like them both, right? Like, I've probably spent more time socializing with Paul than with Fru, but Fru, as an activist, when I was sort of Johnny Appleseeding it, trying to get grassroots going, Fru was one of the people that I saw out and about, right? So I have a lot of respect for Fru and his efforts there. I mean, if there is, he's sort of come in with the camp with Dave Willett. So, I mean, that might be helpful because Dave didn't get smoked in that election. No. All right.
It was very close. And that's why I wonder if there is a real rift there with the Vesna Noon camp, if you get enough flip over there, does that swing that seat potentially?
I mean, I don't see sort of Cambodian on Cambodian crimes, right? Like, I don't see there'll be an abandonment. I think it's more like, if there's a riff, it's more of a timeout. But I think they'd prefer to keep Paul around versus starting from scratch. What's the benefit of bringing Fru along there? I think where Fru
and Councillor Yam was a Vesna Noon vote for mayor.
Yes,
he stayed straight through.
Yes, yeah. I think what happens sometimes, and it's hard to gauge, right, is that we talk to different people, and not everybody is candid and forthright with us. They're giving us some spin, right? And we have to try to sort through that. Like we had heard that Varak and Roddy had a falling out, right? But I'm not feeling it. Like, that could be true. But again, when you're structuring a deal, you're always trying to figure out who your allies are, and a lot can be forgiven. I think Fru, if the structural weakness for Paul, I think, and this remains to be seen, and I know he's been working to build bridges with the Latino community, is that after the charter change, the Latinos ended up sort of on the short end of things. Now, when they balanced the two districts, there's one district in the majority-minority district, right? That is more than 51%, but it's allocated mostly to Southeast Asians. And then the other district still leans towards Southeast Asians, but the margin is much tighter, right? Probably right in that area of the acre along Market Street. But I know there's some not bad blood, but like they don't like the taste of it. And if Latinos mobilized, I mean, if they would turn out in the numbers that they turn out in federal elections, and they chose whoever they chose, that would be the victorious candidate.
Well, to my understanding, the Latino community was with Dave Willett in the acre back in 2021, and that wasn't enough for Dave Willett.
I don't know if they turned out.
Did the dynamic change this year?
It's about knocking doors, man. It's about knocking doors.
It's June 26th. Long way to go. A lot can happen between now and November 7th. I'm going to skip District 8 for a second because that's two challengers vying to replace Eric Gitcher. Do you predict any upsets? Do you think any incumbents lose, both in the at-large with Rita Mercy or Vesna Noon? And obviously, I don't think we're going to see a loss in Districts 1, 2, and 3, but do you see any other incumbents losing that race?
No.
I'm with you. For once, we agree 100%. I think every incumbent wins. And I think this is one of my predictions when we switched to the system, and I was a big advocate of it. Still am. I still think it can be useful and will grow and get better. But one of my fears was you're going to start to get these little state rep type situations where maybe you challenge them early, but long term they're gonna run unopposed as long as they want to. Heck, we already see that in District 1, 2, and 3, and maybe there's a couple of legitimate challenges out there. Again, Susie Chun being to me the most likely if there's going to be an upset, but I don't see it.
Susie, if she doesn't make it this time, it's only a matter of time. Susie is smart, capable, and she's going to learn.
That's a tough district, though. as long as Kim Scott is in that seat and keeps doing the work,
Yeah,
that's a tough district to win in.
I understand. But, Susie, how old? I mean, not, like she's young. All right. Like fine wine.
Did she make a mistake not running for school committee?
I think so.
Stop agreeing with me. This is going to be a boring podcast if we agree. Some people may say it already is boring. All right. Okay. District 8, Johnny Dakota, Ty Chum. If there is a nicer person on your list of candidates on there on the board or even in the city than Ty Chum, I'm not sure I've met him. I call him a kid. He really is the nicest person around. I think he's going to get steamrolled by Johnny Dakota the same way he kind of did by Eric Gitchier.
Yes.
In 2021.
Yes.
Potentially even by more this time.
Ty Chum, right? Like I've met him a few times. Again, big smiles, good vibe, right? Like totally cool guy. When I saw him doing his campaign stuff, I thought he was making motivation videos, right? Like I thought I was, I wasn't sure what his point was, all right? Other than, when life is hard, when it gives you lemons, you can make lemonade, right? And Dakota is like, when life gives you lemons, barter them for something. Because someone in Lowell needs lemons. And I'll take those lemons, get something else, change it into this, and he'll get the transaction done. All right. Dakota is the epitome of the old style of doing things. And that's why he's so popular in the Heights. I think the thing that makes, I have this phrase, I've said it about several people like Patrick Murphy. What makes you, what's worse about him is what's best about him, right? Dakota is very good at transactional politics. He's a service provider. He understands how to do constituent services, right? It's just a question of whether or not he expands his list beyond his speed dial. If he does that, he'll be a hard guy to ever unseat as long as he wants that seat.
Well, I'll give you a little hint. Look at the superintendents, how many school superintendents he's been able to work through, and they've come from all over the place. And at one point he left, took another job, and he was brought back into the city by a quote unquote outsider, Joel Boyd. So to me, that I can't speak for his competence doing what he does at school. I believe he's fairly competent for how long he survived, but the fact that he's been able to survive so many changes and continues to be a valuable part of it tells me he's competent at the government thing.
75 years ago, there might have been real bodies to get rid of, but not in the modern era, right? But John knows how to take care of business. All right. It's just a question of whether or not he does it for everybody in his district.
Let's switch over to the school committee side. I either have to get better lighting on the whiteboard or better markers. At large, Jackie Doherty, Connie Martin, running unopposed. Anybody gonna pull paperwork?
I don't think so. The subsidy of incumbency, like the cost of running as a challenger, for what you get out of it, I don't see it. I mean, sooner or later, someone will backfill those seats. Those two, they do a certain job like that. The issue with Joel Boyd, the current superintendent, that fractured some people, and I think there are people that would love to see them challenged. But who would be the challenger? Who would invest in that? Because I think they're beatable. All right, Jackie more than Connie.
Jackie Doherty has lost once before, right. And it was when she kind of crossed the teachers union. And there's speculation out there she crossed them again, and yet I haven't seen anybody run. I do believe there's a possibility we may see somebody hop in there, though.
I'm not rooting for anybody particularly, but I mean, I think Jackie is the more vulnerable of the two. Connie is, really a very much. You ever hear the Bruins? They got the plumbers, right? That phrase. She comes in, she turns the tools every single day. All right. I mean, sure, if you listen to anything she might say on the floor, your feelings might react to that, I guess. But she turns the tools all the time.
Right. Let's look at the district races there. It's District 2 on the school committee side. It combines District 2 and District 4 on the council side. That appears like it could be our only preliminary election. on September 5th, the day after Labor Day. But there's a question mark there. Eileen Del Rossi has pulled papers. Jerry Nutter, former school committeeman, has pulled papers. Bobby Tubielli has not pulled papers, but he has been announced as a candidate. He's been rumored.
Twice.
I've had people telling me, this is the second time he got publicly announced?
Just the other day at a garden party in downtown Lowell, yes.
What is it about Mike Gallagher's patio that makes people announce Bobby Tubielli as a candidate?
Well, so Gallagher...
I was there, or I left too early. I missed it.
Gallagher at least sort of sought permission instead of just sort of letting it slide out, right?
Oh, wait, so it was Attorney Gallagher who this time proclaimed Bobby Tubielli a candidate?
Said, can I say it? And Bobby gave him the thumbs up.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good because at a fundraiser for Senate President Karen Spilka at the same location a few weeks ago, Senator Ed Kennedy did the honors and didn't ask for permission, just said introducing dignitaries, as is the want at these events, and said Bobby Tubielli, candidate for Lowell School Committee. Word got back to me pretty quickly. We put a story out, reached out to Bobby naturally for some type of comment. Crickets. We published the story anyway. There were too many people who heard it. And interestingly enough, while he didn't respond directly to the story on LinkedIn, another new social media forum, he retweeted or he reposted the story that basically announced his candidacy, again, without any formal announcement from him. And as of 11 o'clock this morning, when I found out that Riddy Young had pulled papers for Lowell City Council, he has yet to pull paperwork to go out and get his signatures. Not that I don't think he can get 150 signatures. He most certainly can, and he's got, 3 weeks to do so. But why not get out there already? This is a very unique campaign strategy for a guy that gave the nod, as you say, last Thursday that, I'm running.
It's interesting. So like I was using the phrase like measure the curtains, right? Dakota's been measuring the curtains for public office, whether it was this particular office, but like he's done all the work and he's been a sort of steady state that he's positioned himself, right? I frequently say smart people aren't great. It's not that they get close to the brass ring that they grab. It's that they keep more than one brass ring within reach and they can pick the best one for the moment. Right? But they always have more than one brass ring available to them. Dakota is a guy that's figured out how to always be within reach. Bobby has tried to put himself into position. And when he ran for city council 2 years ago, the course of his campaign saw sort of a shift. All right. He might have attracted some voters, but I think he lost some voters. And he came in fourth, I think. And it wasn't that close as Attorney Gallagher portrayed on the deck. All right. It was respectable. It was respectable. Much better than either one of us did. But post-election, what I was picking up was he didn't react to the loss well. He was struggling with how that happened. And his demeanor sort of shifted. Right? Then he went,
interesting. He got kind of quiet.
Then he went quiet, right? About 6 months ago, just to pick a number out of the hat, his social media started to reflect more. It's always been kind of DEI and human resources because he's a human resources professional. There's always been that line in his sort of public output, but he started skewing more towards school committee. So like the crumb trail definitely directs him towards school committee. All right. So I believe that for several months now. What I think is he's still trying to measure the drapes. And when he goes around and talks to people that he's talked to in the past, asking for things like sign placements, he's not getting the enthusiastic feedback that he was getting before. So I think he's like a deer caught in the headlights. All right. There's a lot of pressure on him to run. And I think there's people that have expectations of him, folks like Attorney Gallagher, but I'm not sure if he feels it in his bones that he's ready to launch, because if he was, he would have pulled He would have started running a long time ago.
So the last time I saw him, and ironically, you were in the area, he just basically said he still doesn't know. He was undecided, even though I had been told he's running for school committee. When he was introduced, because you were there, I left, was he introduced as running for school committee just in general, or was he introduced specifically for that district, which I look up as District 2?
I don't remember the specifics. I was caught up with seeing who clapped when his name was.
Did you take notes?
I mean, I know what I was doing. All right.
You're not a fan.
I used to be, but I've reconsidered. Okay. The thing, although I don't, again, like anybody, I think he certainly loves his family and he's a good person. Right? Like, there's not evil. We're not talking about national politics, right?
I like Bobby Tubielli, the candidate, a lot more than Bobby Tubielli, the activist. I said that to him outright last time.
It's, but in terms of on the deck, I didn't clap for anybody except for Youth Build. Because I like to be the rogue, right? So I had my cool sunglasses on, and I was a no clapping mofo. But when Youth Build came out, right, the whole kit and caboodle. Because, yay, kids, right?
So is there a reason that maybe he hasn't announced yet? Could that reason be that he may bounce from District 2 to run at large? I think I personally see him as more suited for District for at large in the school committee. That District 2 was so heavily dominated by Centerville, and you saw that with the fact that Eileen Del Rossi was able to trounce Hillary Clark, who was very popular and very loved downtown, and it wasn't even close.
You're catching me off guard with this idea, but
is that why the hesitancy?
No, I'm calculating as we talk, right?
Nutter's in the race.
Yep, and Del Rossi just pulled a major,
brilliant strategical move.
Look, the UTL is in love with Del Rossi right now. She just pulled off a stroke of genius with the paraprofessionals, and she got a major win. Paul Georges and the UTL are going to spend money to make sure that she wins, right? And I can tell you from the state rep race, when the unions get involved, mail comes from manna from heaven, okay? Yep. When the special interests get involved, it's manna from heaven. So anybody that's in that race is going to have to contend with the UTL and whatever other unions align. Okay. So Bobby knows his way around. He knows enough people that know. Okay. He's spent several years making sure he's close to the movers and shakers. Maybe he is measuring the drapes for an at-large race because it's going to be hard. Like I thought Del Rossi was very beatable. All right. And Nutter's got a lot of juice on the other side. You know, he's got a big family and he served on the school committee and did well for himself. Of course, we both know that as loudmouths, that like we make friends and we make enemies, but nobody trusts us.
Yeah, and Jerry does have name recognition, being on radio every single morning up until the period before that he'll have to come off the air. But as I look at that race, if I were advising Bobby T, and Bobby, this is free advice from me and maybe even from Jack, so take it. But the play maybe to me, Bobby he plays well in downtown, but I think he also plays better in maybe a much more liberal Belvedere than it used to be. I think he might find more support citywide than in that district.
Yes and no. So to escape the wrath of Paul Georges, right? And the money of expenditure of Paul Georges and the special interests, going at large and running potentially, you throw your hat in the ring. If Jackie has a structural weakness with the UTL, right? The thing with Bobby is that, I don't know how to say this because I don't like to talk about family, but he's engaged with the charter schools. Let's put it that way, right? He's engaged with the charter schools deeply.
Which are public schools.
Yeah, that's what some people say.
I keep hearing this discussion, and you hear that thrown about Susie Chun as well.
Yeah.
But they are public schools. They should be viewed as such.
But when they have a kid that isn't hacking it, they can punt them over to the Lowell public schools, right? Like the vocational school. Vocational school can punt kids back into our school district. One of the things I learned a long time ago is, you're public with an asterisk, but as long as you can punch your kids to someplace else, you're not. Some schools are more public than others, and Paul George's knows this.
Yes, he most certainly does. So maybe that's the fly in that theory. But it is a good theory, though, right?
Hey.
Let's let that circulate.
No. I mean, I think Bobby has strength in the downtown. All right, he's figured out to cultivate a brand that's accepted by the Mills to Martinis crew. Whether it flies in the acre, that remains to be seen. Although he spends a lot of time doing the cha-cha right at Pinellas. More power to him. Maybe the at-large lineup is a better lineup for him.
All right, there's our free political consulting. District 3 School Committee, that combines Belvedere, District 3 City Council with the South Lowell District 5. Dave Conway originally got in the race as the challenger to Susie Chun. He sits there alone now. Are we going to see anybody pull paper?
This is Tales from the Crypt. All right, whatever. Next.
He may just walk into that school committee seat. And I had talked to Dave Conway early on, and he was running at large, which leads me to believe he correctly calculated what Susie Chun's decision was going to be, and then figured, all right, well, this is a better. I had told him my advice to him was, when he asked, was run in Belvedere. It's your neighborhood. You're familiar with it. You don't have to traipse around the city. I'd like to think that's why he chose to do that, but I'm not naive enough to.
District is. I think they should boost the pay, or they should make it so that only the mayor can come from the at-large. That's not a popular idea. But why run at large? What's the benefit to it? Conway, any of these people, but particularly Conway, he's got a lot of service. He's experienced. He's going to be a steady hand. All right. Again, very old school politics. Very status quo. I think, again, he measured the drapes and saw that district. I mean, I'm disappointed in a way, I guess, because if I only had one life preserver between Dave and Kim, I'd throw it to Kim, right? But I'd like to see Susie match up against Dave, because if she wants to prove herself politically and sort of her political acumen, because Dave's much more of a machine guy. Kim's got established backing, but she's fundamentally a grassroots, a parent activist. All right. So I would have preferred Susie to stay in that race. I think that would have tested Susie in ways that would have been beneficial for her long-term career path.
All right, let's keep going down that list. It remains to be seen whether Conway gets a challenger. District 1, which combines District 1 Pawtucketville, District 8 Upper Highlands. Stacey Thompson, the incumbent. Freddie Bahu has pulled papers to run. Freddie still serves on the Greater Lowell Regional Technical High School, the VOC, school committee. Can we just go back to calling it the VOC? It's so much easier. He serves on that. He's now pulled papers. Highlands resident. I always thought Stacey Thompson was very vulnerable. Quite frankly, to me, it was an upset when she beat Ben Opara in that race, both from Pawtucketville, by the way, right?
The Gitzius leaned in on that. I don't know why they chose Stacey over Ben, but the Gitzius leaned in a little bit. I'm pretty sure there was a party at what's the golf course over there?
Oh, Mount Pleasant, the Mount.
Yeah.
Right. So is she vulnerable after watching her serve on again, incumbency is very beneficial. Is she vulnerable to a guy that has some experience and has some name recognition in that Highlands district?
Yes, because the support that she had in a city that this is Pawtucketville and Highlands, right? These are high propensity voters. There's not a lot of low propensity voters between the two. Freddie has a lot of name recognition, and he's going to have political machinery. That would almost talk me out of voting if I was to vote for Freddie, right? But Stacey I'll say that's almost like a failure to launch sort of idea for the people. When I sort of became aware of her, there was folks that were super excited about her ideas, the things that she was talking about, her level of passion, but also she seemed to have a wise sensibility to her about what needed to be done. But some of those folks have pivoted away, saying the description was like a one-trick pony. She turned into kind of like the megaphone for maybe what Bobby T wanted to talk about, which were DEI issues. Now, anybody can prove me wrong, and this is the internet. So go on into the agendas and pull out Stacy's motions and show me where I'm wrong. All right. My homework was to produce this board. Your homework can be show me how Stacy has done the work and turned the tools, like maybe Connie definitely does. All right, and isn't just a one-trick pony.
Well, she's sided with Connie Martin and Jackie Doherty on the whole anti-Joe Boyd thing, and
little bit. She wobbled, didn't he? Or was that Susie?
No, I think it was Susie that kind of maybe had a change of heart. Stacy has been very steadfast, very critical of the administration, very much in favor of that investigation, to the point where she was probably the harshest public critic of the now former solicitor, Helene Thompson. I mean, where I kind of got the sense Jackie Doherty and Connie Martin tried to pull their punches a little. Yeah. Stacy went right at her, which, coming from the, as you say, the DEI voice on the school committee, was fascinating to me. Why I think she's vulnerable is the DEI movement 2023 versus 2021 is not in the same place. Some of the shine is off of that gem, so to speak.
Well, you'll get a kick out of this. They added a letter,
Really?
Yes. Which kind of like the LGBTQ plus as it goes on and on,
it's
right?
Now longer
it's
than
now
the Greek alphabet.
DEIB. B for belonging. Give it 6 months. Give it 6 months.
DEIB.
DEIB.
It does spell D.
I just went through the training, and look, call me an asshole if you want. It wouldn't be the first one. All right. For 50.
I don't mean to laugh at this DEIB.
Can
we just stop adding letters and just all get together and realize we bleed?
I just think it's like
we all bleed the same blood. Damn it.
Keeping word, right? So I don't know. I try to be attuned to, as a human, growing, right? And I'm not the same person. There's certain elements of me, like my caustic wit, right? And my brutish nature. But I try to grow. And so I believe in these movements that force us as a culture to change, right? But when I feel like I'm just being flogged for not being good enough, that I don't meet the litmus test, that I'm not changing fast enough or accepting every element of the change instantly. I think sometimes when they add letters is just to keep us off balance because we got good at it. And next thing you know, it's like, nope, it's different now because you are behind the times. I don't know if that's a plan or if it just seems to work out that way.
Who knows? All right, last but certainly not least, District 4 school committee side, Dominic Lay, the majority-minority school committee district. There are two on the council side. There's one on the school committee side. He just pulled paperwork within the last couple of days. There was some speculation that he may not even run because he hadn't pulled paperwork, but he pulled his paperwork. He's running. He does not have a challenger. I checked, this was the closest race in 2021. Dominic Lay versus Chet Kim was the closest school committee race. And now he appears like he's going to run unopposed, which from where he came from, having to go to court to secure his seat on that school committee, absolutely fascinating to me that he would run without a challenger. Is that a testament to how effective he's been as a school committee member these last couple of years, or to the apathy on the school committee side of those two districts?
I mean, I don't want to believe it's apathy, right? Some people, the spin artists, they like to say, like us, they like to say it's things like people are satisfied with the job that's being done, right? Um, why he hadn't why he hadn't signed off before, I don't know, maybe he was on vacation or something. I don't really know, right? And so, I don't know what the deal is with that. Domicile is going to be an issue. I think that issue might come up with Barack Wee, right? Because I mean, I don't know what his voting record is. A little bit mixed. He ran in another area, so like, and I think there might be actually family ties between Dominic Lay and Barack Wee. So I look, Dom does the work, right? Like, is he great at it? How the hell would I know? I haven't watched the school committee, right? Like, I haven't. So, you know, the people that will care, they'll know. And you know what? Shame on Lowell. If like he's just getting in by default, if anybody, you know, gets in by default, shame on Lowell. If they measure the curtains and they measure the drapes and they're like, oh, there's no way to do it. Well, we didn't shrink down to turfs in districts. You can knock enough doors and do face-to-face interactions. If you're any kind of package, you can sell yourself. And one of the things that you do is you don't blurt all your campaign shit at voters. Knock doors and just listen to them. Help them develop like what you're going to talk about and what you're going to just, and voters want to see you as carrying their torch into City Hall. If you convince them that you will be their torchbearer, I don't know how many voters I've ever heard say they showed up and asked for my vote. That's like a famous story from Boston, right?
Never asked for my vote.
You never asked for my vote.
So there you have it. Lowell City Council election as it stands today, June 26th, 2023. Paperwork has to be returned July 18th or July 14th.
You know what? You posted on InsideLowell.
I did. It's on Inside. Go to InsideLowell. You can find the election calendar, but it's coming up. It's about 3, maybe 4 weeks away. Will there be any new developments? We shall see. Of course, we'll be here at Inside Lowell covering it. Jack Mitchell, you're looking at him across from me. Yours truly, Teddy Panos. Very excited to have Jake Vitale, formerly of the Lowell Sun. He's back in the area with Inside Lowell. He's gung-ho to be part of our election team. We're still putting it together. I know Asa Stutz is going to be part of it. A couple of other people we've reached out to. But hey, I'm excited about it. I love election season. It's like a months-long Super Bowl. And I know you're kind of a political junkie as well.
I'm a wicked nerd. I love this stuff.
So much so that we did an hour and 32 minutes, just the two of us. Imagine how long our Pod Squad podcast is going to be once we record that right after this one.
I'm kind of pooped out. I'm going to go eat some tacos.
I'm with you. All right. Jack Mitchell, thank you for joining us. And thank all of you for joining us as well here on another Inside Lowell podcast. This is available. I don't know where you're watching it or listening to it, but it's available in a number of places. Our website, of course, InsideLowell.com. Our YouTube channel, it'll be out there on Facebook. There'll be links to it on Twitter. And, of course, all the podcast services like Spotify and Apple and Google, and there's a million others out there. We're there. But as we like to say, Inside Lowell, if Lowell is your home, this is your place. Till next time, everybody, stay safe out there.